Isabel Chiara, welcome to the podcast. I'm delighted to have you join us today. What is going to be a very interesting and I think very helpful conversation for people at this time of the year. So, thank you for coming on. Would you like to give us a little bit of insight in your background, a little bit about yourself?
Oh, you're gonna make me do that. Okay. Um, so um I have come to this point. My name, thank you for having me on this show.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you.
great.
I grew up in a really hardworking family, and actually my parents were immigrants from Italy, and they were actually in World War II.
Wow.
And so they were they were on the ground. And actually my father had Germans living with him in his house. They took over his house as a headquarter. So you can imagine the conversations that didn't go on in our house because I think there was nothing worse than, what they went through. So I think that at an early age, there was not a lot of room for feelings and thoughts and feelings that we had. They were on a mission. When they came to America, they had this mission, and they ended up creating restaurants in the United States, and they were super successful. And I, so appreciate them. They gave us a really good, I mean, at the time, it didn't feel great.
Because it's struggle, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel great because, you're just a little kid and we didn't really even know what their experience was. I'm only looking at it now at a
Yeah.
later age
Yeah.
and how all of that influenced my childhood upbringing. And so there was this kind of survival instinct that they brought to us, and which created for me a conversations that I would have for myself about, you know, I wouldn't ever say, I'm sad. I started, if anything ever happened, I started to use words and reparent myself in a way that um, was harsh. And I would, if I started to cry, which I'm a super sensitive kid, I said, all right, stop that right now. Stop it. We
Mm.
can't, we're not doing that. And then later on in life, I really had to learn how to parent that part of me that I was so busy escaping. I would escape myself, my feelings. I started to look towards spirituality, but my idea was of spirituality was really to leave my body so that I didn't feel any sadness and I didn't feel any kind of anxiousness in my system.
Mm.
And I, at an early age, began to look for things that would allow me to feel safe in my body. And that was very safe for me, food.
Mm.
So I have explored food from every angle, left, right, diet, um, leaving my body, filling that void. And that's how my experience was throughout my whole life.
Mm.
But in all of that, I always looked inside of myself for because I began to realize at some point I needed to get back in my body.
Mm.
That was really that was going to really ground me because I would almost get to the point where I would lose, like if I was talking to somebody and it didn't feel okay, I would just kind of move on, like escape, the conversation, or, I used to call myself an escape artist. So, um, so that's been my path, really, to learn how to connect with my body, connect with myself. And so I began in the last 3 years to look at, instead of, you know, binging or feeding the void inside of myself, I began to look at the whole concept of nourishment.
Mm.
And when I say nourishment, I'm talking about nourishment from the whole perspective of everything in my life.
Hmm.
Because the truth is, I was living a really good life.
Mm.
I learned how to create for myself. I learned how to create abundance for myself. But I um, was struggling with the concept of really nourishing myself. Didn't never felt fed from the inside. So the diets just became, I mean, so really I knew that that wasn't the way. The way for me, what became more internal,
Mm.
became really looking at myself and seeing how I really felt from the inside out, and my world outside would shift.
Mm.
So that's been my path. And when I talk about nourishment, I talk about it as a journey, that it's not really a pill. If anybody's looking for a solution for a weight thing, that's not it. I
If
don't believe it.
only. Yeah.
If only, right? I mean, I thought with what, a lot of the things that are out right now, but even that's not
People are
the
still
greatest.
unhappy. They're still like not
Yeah,
full. They're not full as you'd refer to it.
right. They're not. And we're right. They are unhappy. So the main takeaway, so to speak, by looking at nourishment as a path for myself and something that I am able to help people with, and I coach people on this too. It's that we're always on this path, and on that path, you're never in the wrong spot. You're never like, oh my God, I'm not there yet, because we're on a path, right? So we're okay, we're where we are at.
Mhm.
So that's why I like to say that nourish is something that we are shifting from the inside out.
And it's not wholly about food either, the concept of nourish. There's so much more, and we'll get into that, but there's a lot to unpack there. It really is like peeling the layers back off an onion. Like your family fled a war-torn Europe to live the American dream and give you all a better life. And with that, and even I'm European too. Like, there's a hardness in Europeans because of a lot of our history between the Irish Civil War and the famine, and then World War One and Two. There's a lot there where we, not me and you specifically, but our ancestors, and of course there's genetic traits there where we learn to be hard and not deal with certain emotions. And like you said, stop that crying now. And even I remember my parents at one stage saying that to me too. And it is a trait of being European on some level, I think. And then, of course, the struggle is real when your parent, it's very hard to emigrate. Like, I'm an immigrant and I know how very hard it is. And your parents wanted the best for you. So, not only was there the struggle of bringing a whole family from Europe and America, like, it's so big compared to Europe, and then doing well, opening restaurants, like the hustle and the grind that's
Right.
required there, and even the focus, like I don't even have time for emotions. There's a lot to be
Exactly.
considered.
Right. So, meaning I don't have time for emotions, meaning I don't have time for me. It's really
Exactly.
what it's
Well,
translated
yeah. Mhm.
in a bigger space. But with that comes the whole a way to eat, a way to do life. And
Mhm.
a way to do life is, come on, let's go. Come on, you're late. Blah, blah. You know what I mean? That is that hurriedness, that um, taking time and space for ourselves is kind of what played out in my family. And that's how I began to do everything. I mean, it's really it feels really exciting a lot of times to be that way and get things
Because the
done.
adrenaline, yeah.
Yeah, the adrenaline flow. So it was like an attachment to the adrenaline flow too. And so um, that kind of lifestyle. And it also creates inside of us like an anxiousness, but the anxiousness is a way to move forward too. And a way to, when I thought about getting rid of it years ago, I was like, what? Like, what am I going to do without that adrenaline flow? Like, that's the thing that made me do, magic tricks, when I could only do 500 things instead of 1,000 things. You know what I mean? That was very tantalizing.
But that adrenaline flow, that adrenaline high, that tantalizing feeling, the excite, that's a fake. That's fake
Yes.
happiness. And you
Yes.
can't stay on that high forever.
Right.
Eventually, that roller coaster is going to come down and you're going to crash and burn.
Right.
And like what you're explaining is how most people live nowadays. We're go, 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 go. And we live on adrenaline. And you know the term like the grinding, I think I used it with you earlier, or someone I know I said it today to someone like the constant grind. You get the
Right.
excitement of feeling I'm moving forward, I'm achieving, I'm becoming great almost. But it's a fake high.
Right.
It's not true happiness.
And it really affects our whole body. You talk about hormonal um, issues, but I really think it affects our whole disposition, how we look at things, how we connect with people. And I feel like the whole process is because if you're that high, you're that low.
Yeah.
Y-
Well,
Right? And you're always looking for that, exciting high, getting this done, getting a lot done. And that's who I like to say that's how you be. Like you're doing you're like doing your doing instead of your being because you don't really know who you are.
but like what you said in the beginning, you're going and you're doing all this. Why are you staying so busy? What are you running away from? What are you trying to avoid? Like
Mhm.
why I mean, there's a lot to be considered, but I do think a part of people being so busy and even like in what I do, using that excuse of I'm too busy. What are you running away from there by telling me you're too busy?
Right. And then, you know what? There's another thing that I noticed too over the years. When you start to say that to yourself, the words are really important that we use. So when we start to say, I'm too busy, it's like things come at us more and more. Like the outside world is offering busyness up on a plate for you.
You're manifesting, you're bringing
Right?
in more busyness.
Okay, so a couple of things I did just to test this out. One was um, this is just a, kind of a really short story, but I remember like my desk at work was like packed with stuff. And I would say, I'm busy.
Mhm.
And I would also affirm that with, oh my God, I have so much to do. So I have so much to do. Look at this. I'm never going to get through it. I would use those exact words. So one day, because I, was checking to see how like my words played out in my life, I said, I'm going to start to say that my desk is clear and I get everything done and everything's, perfect. It just flows to me. So I started doing that. I swear to God, within 3 days, I started to say to my desk, forget that. My desk started to clear up. And a lot of the things that were on my desk started to work themselves out.
Mhm.
Like people, hey, let me just do that for you. But my desk was empty. And now to this day, my desk is empty
Mm.
because I do watch the words that I say to myself, in the daily.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying I'm busy anymore. I don't say that to myself because God forbid I have like a whole thing to, a lot of things to do.
I don't need to attract more.
I say, like, this morning was like so perfect. I even said I was grateful. I showed like a lot of appreciation for that for myself. I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I have space to breathe. I am like in the flow right now. Everything's completed that I need to complete."
Mhm.
And so I had like I could feel for the, first time, like more space than I have been experiencing just by using those words.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so profound.
Mm. What we say to ourselves is Very impactful. But what you're describing, like, it's a sense of freedom. It's a sense of peace that a lot of women, especially, can only dream of. But
Right.
something else I picked up in what you were saying there as well, like, I'm so busy, I have so much to do. There was an element there where you're basically saying, hey, I was standing in my own way.
No, yeah. I didn't even look at it like that. Perfect. I
Because
know
what
that.
we're telling ourselves, we're actually
Right.
standing in our own way. Like
Right.
there, of course, there's a level where we actually can be very busy, but a lot
Right.
of the time we're not as busy as we think we are.
Well, I'm offering for everyone to try that experiment and say, I get everything done and and I'm in flow. Because that's when I realized that I needed another word for myself as opposed to um, what I was doing in my life, that I needed a word. And that's when I came up with that word nourish.
Mhm,
And that, what that word does to me now, it's like a mantra. And what it does is it allows me to feel calm in my body. It allows me to feel safe, and it allows me to be okay with me and have another level of self-acceptance.
mhm,
And also, it allows me to feel joy because there's no good or bad anymore because you're just on a path to nourishing.
mhm,
And if things are happening in your life, let's just say we have to clean up. You said you love to do this. You clean up the kitchen or clean up something. I mean, we're doing it already. What if we made that like a nourishing thing for us?
mhm,
And driving in the car, like for me, that's totally nurturing and nourishing.
mhm,
Everything that I do, I own it as part of my own acceptance and part of an integration of nourishment for my body, mind, soul, and spirit.
mhm,
And it's so interesting. It takes that pressure off of us. It almost dissipates any anger or any kind of relationship that we have with that the thing we're doing, the behavior we're doing.
mhm.
And
There's
it allows us to accept the behavior because I'm sorry, but in order to change a behavior, you almost have to accept that gift of the behavior that you've been continuing your whole life.
mhm. There's an element of what you're saying there, like even with doing the chores and the driving, of slowing down during the busyness to take advantage of the busyness. Like I like cleaning because it allows me to zone out, like, and I like the self-achievement, but driving, like you said, sometimes that's my me time. I'll play a
Right.
podcast or I listen to music. I try to take in the scenery. Like that's obviously not a time where I can be working or talking to clients because I could die driving.
Uh-huh.
So it is, there's perspective involved there as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, this, like, I was looking forward to having this conversation on because of the time of the year that it is. And
Mhm.
we've got a lot of like, I know people try to avoid the terminology of New Year's resolutions and goals now. It's crazy how society rolls sometimes. But there is a lot of people who've started something new for January, or they have expectations of themselves or goals they want to hit this year. But a lot of people, unfortunately, will not continue on that path. And that's why I wanted to speak to you because you have experience in this realm. Why, and in basic terms, why do you think people will start something, but they'll struggle to stay on the plan or keep up with it? And even I would add in continue to nourish themselves or self prioritize.
Right. Well, first of all, I don't think people look at it as like, hey, I'm going to do this because it's nourishing to me. I think people get an idea and they're like, okay, I'm going to do, and they think it's going to be right
Mm,
for them. And then at some point, when like a behavior comes in that they haven't really explored deeply, and and they have feelings about themselves of, they have words also of them for themselves that are like, oh, this isn't good for me, or this is too hard, or why bother? I'm not going to be successful, or it's too much energy. And, I think that the why has to be greater. And we need to explore that why we are going to do something.
Mhm.
And, we'll check in with other people. What do you think? You think this is good for me? It has to be a yes, like an intuitive yes in our body. We have to have a really big yes. I mean, I think that's when things really work for us. We're able to integrate it because under no uncertain circumstances is anything going to get in the way. I mean, we hear all the time that people that are successful know that they're on this path and they want to do something. And whatever it is, opening up a new business, working out, eating healthy, it's a normal one, eating healthy. And no matter what happens, they're not going to veer off to that. They're not going to, give in one time because your body, I feel like our body doesn't really want to change. It doesn't
Mhm.
really want to change. It likes where we are. It likes to stay put where we are. And so um, it has to be something that's greater than our will over us, like
Mhm.
something that's almost coming from the inside. Like
Yeah.
it's time now. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced, but sometimes people say things or they hear something from somebody else or they see something and they're like, oh my God, that is me. I'm there. I'm going to do it because that thing from the outside has resonated with them. So I think it's just to really see what we need to see ourselves in that behavior and under no other circumstances any words we say to ourselves is going to shift that goal we have.
Because you mentioned before we even started recording that you'd heard a bit about my journey, and my why is quite strong, and I always will kind of refer to my why as a fire inside me. I have a fire, and sometimes it's just kindling, and sometimes it burns bright, and if I put my mind to something, it's going to happen. Like I'm very driven in that sense. And I think there's a lot there in regards to high adrenaline and trauma and even just being Irish, looking at my ancestors and stuff. But I definitely have a strong why, and I think in many people that's required. What you're saying is having that very strong why, except not a lot of people have it. Some people, like you said, they think they want something, they think it's the right thing for them, but they haven't really thought about it or assessed the situation. And at this time of the year, most people are not saying in January, oh, I'm going to build a business. It's usually, I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to get fit and go to the gym and all. Because I don't want to say societal expectations, because I'm not saying it's not right, but I am saying that a lot of people don't consider the approach or the process properly. And if it's right for them, like I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but because I do want to come to the emotional aspect, but people jump the gun on certain things because they think it will make them happy. Oh, if I lose this weight, it's going to make me happy. If
My
I
life's
look a
going to
certain way,
begin. My
yeah.
life's going to begin now.
Yeah,
Okay, because
it
I'm
doesn't. Let me tell you, like I'm at my goal weight and I have my successful business and everything, but I mean, I'm happy most of the time, but there's times where I'm not happy. Just because I lost the weight, it brought an element of confidence and it made life easier, but it didn't necessarily bring happiness. That was
right,
more like my kids and my life's purpose brought the happiness.
right, right. And for me, the approach feels more genuine to be the happy by, this concept of nourishment. Be happy, be joyful in every moment, and use the words and use the whole mental visual of, okay, yeah, this is happy. This is what happy is for me. This is what joyful is for me. I'm showing up as that person. I'm being that person already.
Mm-hmm.
And then these behaviors, just taking a look at some of the behaviors. And I'm going to bring up my app now because what I offer is ways to look at all of these, like not good enough and the relationships that have not been so great in our life and connections that we're not having. Look at all of these behaviors and look at where they started in our life.
Mm,
And um, what I'm offering in my app is just ways in which to heal that inner child within us and bring in what I call an inner guardian just to discover and explore what were the feelings that we put away
mhm,
because those creep up on us all the time,
mhm,
right? And so, just to bring up, some of my they're activations. And what they do is they bring you through a process of one of my processes is called sabotaging self. And in that, it's the result becomes a tool that we bring part of ourselves to consciousness and we nourish ourselves and we create stronger self-loving relationship with the part of ourselves that we don't feel safe in our body.
mhm,
And so we begin to, I recommend listening to this twice a week, even if you hear it unconsciously and you're not totally present and you kind of zone out. Um, what ends up happening is you begin to take a pause and you begin to start to notice, are you choosing yourself or are you choosing something else or someone else over yourself? And then you begin to build on that foundation and you, instead of taking yourself out or knocking yourself down and saying, I'm not worthy, and turning your lights off over yourself,
mhm,
you start to choose yourself.
mhm,
And I can't think of a better way to do our life than really looking at when things started
mhm,
and when we started this behavior, because the truth is some of these behaviors we could just shift and notice and take a pause, and it begins to shift the main behavior about not feeling okay or nourished in our life.
mhm. So
So
what
I
you,
have a series of these 12 activations that are really transformative and where we get to look at, you know, I have one that's called I'm Not Enough, because I think underlying a lot of our behaviors, we learned in an early age that we weren't not enough. And now we just are in situations where we always feel, I mean, how many times a day do people feel like they're still not enough in different situations?
yeah, well, there's a lot of self-shame involved in how we think about ourselves or
Mhm.
one line that comes to mind as you were speaking there is the line of like, failure is not failure, failure is a lesson. And as much as we say that, it's kind of been a tagline in social media for the last few years. I still think a lot of people don't understand that. They still think I failed at this, I'm a failure. And the more they fail at different things, it compounds how much of a failure they think they are, and then they struggle to get back on their feet each time and then try again and try again. Because it beats you down over time, and you compound that by whatever you've been told as a child, or maybe you were bullied or whatever else. Like, it does wear people down to a point where they believe what they're hearing or what they've been told.
Right.
And you're,
Exactly. So you're saying that, which I'm saying the same thing too. We are kind of building ourselves up on some of these negative ways of looking at ourselves, like I'm not enough. Every time we do something, we feel, okay, it's not good enough. I mean, granted, the good part about that is, I mean, a lot of successful people have that belief that they want to try more. They are motivated to try harder, try new things and stuff because they want to get to their point where they feel like they are enough, but they don't get to that point where they feel that they are enough.
Mhm,
They haven't looked at the foundation and the inner. voice and the inner child that has experienced so many times I'm not enough. And we keep reinforcing the I'm not enough
Hmm.
in our bodies. And our body, like, uh, as Gabor Mate says, our body keeps score of how many times we're not enough.
Hmm. Yeah, and our central nervous system for sure.
Right. And we
And
go into situations with that precedent already that, okay, I don't really know if it's going to work out, but,
yeah,
if,
there's that element of, well, I'll try, I'll give it a go, but deep down, they already think they've failed. They have this self-belief that it's not going to work out in the end regardless, but I'll try. Whereas a different personality is like, I'm going to try and I'll probably be successful. There's perspective there. And
Mhm.
you're right in what you're saying. Like, even successful people, there's an element of I'm not good enough. They just push themselves in a different direction.
Right. Because there'll be an area in their life where they do feel like they're really good.
Mm. Yeah, there's an element of
Right? A lot
cockiness,
of times.
but I suppose it's personalities is a consideration there, different personalities and upbringing, of course, mentorship and whatnot. But it's something I struggle with my clients a lot. Those who stop showing up for themselves. And then there's the element of shame there, which it breaks my heart. It really does, because I just want everyone to be successful and continue going and showing up for themselves. But
Right.
um, it's that.
What if we looked at everything that's happened up to this point as a gift? Because we learned a million ways um to try a behavior or look at a behavior. And maybe it's just shifting some of the words. Maybe it's um brought us to this point. Like, I thank God for food in my life because I felt anxious all the time as a child. Like, I mean, thank God I had that. And for me, I didn't go to drink or I didn't go to drugs, but I went to food
Mhm.
and I had something that I felt I would be okay. What if we went through life, any of us that we didn't have a thing to be okay? I mean, our nervous system would like explode.
Yeah. Well, that's your safety blanket.
Yes.
That was your safety net. And some people will turn, unfortunately, to alcohol to not only feel safe, but to block out those uncomfortable feelings. But that circles us right back to the happiness. Like, I genuinely believe, and I can think of like five clients off the top of my head where no matter, I could say, no matter what you do, no matter how many diets or gym memberships you get, none of it's going to work unless you address,
Eventually you quit going.
well, unless you address why are you so unhappy? Like,
Right.
it's the food and the gym is not going to fix it. Like, a lot of society, I really believe, is unhappy, and that could be many reasons, societal expectations and whatnot. But people are genuinely unhappy.
Hmm.
I
Mm.
think that for sure in my fields, I see that and it's upsetting. You know, it really, I want more people to be happy so they can continue to show up for themselves and experience the joy that we're talking about when you can stop in the moment and be like, okay, I'm not super duper happy, but I'm feeling pretty good. Like, I'm happy right now. And most people don't feel that.
Right. I'm feeling satiated. I'm feeling, proud of myself. I'm feeling enough. If we just start to get to those behaviors and words for ourselves, it's part of the path to nourishing ourselves, right?
And that, like we said at the beginning, is not just food, which is where
Yeah. No,
we'll
it's
bring,
not about food. Yeah.
it's about everything. It's about, well, slowing down, like we mentioned, taking care of yourself, just reading a book, go for a walk, get your hair done, your nails, like just the stuff that
Right.
we almost take for granted.
Hmm. Right. Because we can't quit. we really can't, we keep quitting ourselves, but we can't really keep quitting ourselves on some level. You know, when we experience these moments when we feel like we failed or we are not doing well, we get to figure out a way, and I think it's a path, and we get to figure out that path to feeding our soul, feeding our brain, feeding our body, feeding our spirit. You know, some of the things I like to do is, have like morning rituals that I do where I pray for, you know, I'm like the gratefulness of things that are have shown up in my life and for people that have shown up in my life. And that almost elevates my soul in the morning, and it's a great way to begin looking at our day instead of just going into that, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh, I got an appointment at 6 or just that moment of gratitude in the morning is so important also to as part of this whole nourishment process and to allow ourselves to start to notice because as we notice what we are grateful for, that gratefulness expands around us.
Mhm.
The energy flows to us, so it expands us,
Mhm.
and we are able to attract more of that in our life.
Yeah, that is the what we were saying earlier is trying to slow down during the busyness. And it is all things. It's all things, which I can already hear people saying, I don't have time for that though. I'm too busy, which is part of our problem. But
Right. Well, we do have time. We have to start from a certain premise, right? That we really do have time. Even if you go to the bathroom, you could take a pause
yeah,
a
even
little minute longer.
yeah, it's that multitasking that we apparently are so good at, but probably not as good as we think. But doing the meditations or the gratitude while you're brushing your teeth, like what are three things you could be grateful for while you're on the toilet? I'm grateful I have toilet roll.
I like that. Really, those moments, really brushing your teeth, and noticing things that you're grateful for. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's a good one.
And I think
So there's so many times that we are just walking from, our office door to, another part of the office. We could do a mantra, um, and that moment also.
Mm. Do you think social media has kind of put us in this position in a sense that not only like the fake expectations we see and the fakeness on social media, but the when you're on social media, the more you do it, the less present you are in life because you're sucked into a fake world. And a lot of us have forgotten how to be present in the moment, even of just brushing your teeth or pooping, where our mind's always racing. We're never actually just present.
Right. So social media, I'm not a person that obsesses with social media. I do see a lot of people, with it's how important it is. And I really am a person that seeks. I think one of the big thing that feeds one's soul is just learning.
Mhm.
Sometimes learning information about what's going on and learning, words and trivia and things like that. I feel like that's part of training our, not training, but being part of our nourishment because I feel I don't know if it's a me thing or it could be a, everybody thing that when I learn something, I feel really good and I feel actually joyful and happy that I got to learn something. So if somebody's doing social media, that might be a way to learn using it as a learning experience. And because if we begin to activate ourselves with the opinions of others, we're actually taking in that other people's perspective. And it's almost too much on our nervous system
Mhm.
because because we get to see like what's my opinion, what's their opinion and what's the middle opinion? Like, what's my opinion for after reading that or hearing that? I have actually uh, an an activation that I call eating for two. And so this is where we lose our boundaries and we lose our own sense of our bodies and we don't know where we end and where we begin
Mhm.
our process because we're listening to other people and they make sense. And then we're looking at somebody else and they make sense. So, where do we get in touch with ourselves in that moment? Because most of us, if somebody's listening to you right now, they're probably really intuitive and empathetic and sensitive, and they're really curious.
Mhm.
And, this might be a point where we are losing our own sense of self, or they're starting to get their own sense of self, but like they've come here because they've lost some sense of themselves. And but there's a strong correlation between the disembodied body and eating in that respect
Mhm.
and being spun out on other people's stuff. They have all these influencers right now. So what does that mean? Does that mean we have to follow what other people are doing? I still don't know what degree that is happening in most people's lives, but I know a lot of younger um, people are influenced by these influencers.
Mhm. A lot more than the older for sure, because
Right.
they're more personable the younger they are. But I think the influencers in 30s and 40s and 50s, they're making us feel more inadequate and that we should be doing more and we should look a certain way and we should be on all these lavish vacations all the time.
Well, I agree with that part, lavish vacations. I'm like, but what I'm saying is uh I don't, it doesn't, when people say things like that doesn't really influence me. So I don't know, I don't think I'm in that category, but I do see a lot of people that regularly follow people and they know every single thing that these people put up.
Mhm.
So, I mean, good for them that they have that kind of um, potency in the world.
Mhm.
But it would just be another place for us to look at ourselves and say, wait, how much of that is like, am I really agreeing with that? I mean, if people are just following other people and they're not taking a pause and really thinking about it,
Mhm.
and they're just following other people just because that's what everybody's doing, then that's a whole um, another way that we lose ourselves. If you
Mhm.
think about it, we're really losing ourselves.
Yeah, and because of that, people need help. And
Uh-huh.
that's where people do need help. They need some sort of guidance. And that's where I think your app comes in the guidance kind of hand holding. So earlier, you had said, like, if we can just stop in the moment and feel happiness or feel joy. And in my head, as you were speaking, I was like, but how? How do people do that? Like, I know how to do, you know how to do, but how do people do that? And then I was thinking, well, that's where the app comes in because
Right.
the app helps to, at least for 30 days, hold your hand and help you become more aware and present in not only behaviors, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's your app, but not only behaviors, but how you're feeling in that day or that moment. It is like maybe mean you can't be beside people all the time to talk them through their experience, but this app can be, and I think it can be very valuable for a lot of people.
It's so valuable, so transformative because you get to look at yourself and all these patterns and all these behaviors, and you end up shifting things because you're like in the consciousness and the awareness of the patterns.
Mhm.
So I mean, it came about because whenever I worked with somebody, I would bring them through the visual of what happened. And we went into a lot of what they were looking for and what their needs were. And they began to really look at these different situations. They weren't so attached to them. they didn't have the effect like they were holding on to, oh, someone did this to me or they said this and the meaning they gave it. And what ends up happening is they get to it's a spontaneous shift. It's just happens naturally because they looked at that point as different. They transformed the behavior or what the meaning they gave the behavior, and they are now, when the inner guardian comes in and meets them, they end up getting their feelings taken care of. They end up being soothed. They end up being acknowledged, and their whole perspective on these different points in their life are transform themselves. And the other thing is I have a couple of these activations that are relationship based. What ends up happening with those is the person ends up showing up differently for them. The person that's in their life or was in their life,
Mhm.
they actually get a spontaneous healing from that situation, even if it's a parent and their parent's gone. How they look at their mother or father ends up shifting also.
Mhm.
It's really amazing when you start to look at yourself from the inside out like that.
So that the app kind of, I suppose, helps or guides people in that self-awareness,
Yeah,
becoming self-aware, help
right.
becoming self-healing, like
Mhm.
becoming yourself, I suppose. Like you're happier, more able to deal with the busyness of life self
Right.
while still nourishing yourself.
Yes. And you're really empowered within.
I really feel like if I was to term it, and again, it's your app, but it's it's someone that'll hold your hand when you need it because maybe the rest of us can't be around. So you're not necessarily alone. You have that support system.
Exactly. It's like therapy in a bottle, but it's a therapy where you can get resolved and not a therapy where you have to keep going there for a million years.
And not a therapy in like a red wine bottle kind of thing.
Right.
So
Um,
you
yeah.
is there anything else you'd like to add in for the app? Because I have a lot of clients off the top of my head that I think would benefit from this. And they're the clients that keep trying and trying and trying a new diet and trying this and trying that. And it's
Yeah.
not just that they're struggling with life in general, all areas of life. And I think they'd very much benefit from this because it shifts the notion of you don't have to just focus on the health and nutrition aspect. You also need to consider all these other factors.
Right. Um, well, first of all, I'm partial to this because I think I've been doing this my whole life, but I didn't have an app to do it with, and I had to find someone to work with me. And I feel like I've gotten to a point myself where I can things don't feel so, oh my God, I got to do this. It doesn't, I don't have that anymore in my life. So I think a lot of things have shifted from this. And I think it's all about perspective. And I think it's about feeling safe and trusting yourself. And I feel like this app does offer that.
Mhm.
But I mean, you get to listen to it and you get to really pay attention to what's going on. And it just ends up having a big component in somebody's life on shifting behaviors. It's really designed to shift behaviors and be conscious.
Mhm.
And the more conscious we are, the more we can make decisions in that moment for ourselves. I
Mhm.
mean, wouldn't it be great to get to the point where, oh, I'm going to take a breath. Oh my God, I don't even want that. Oh my God, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stick with it. And oh my God, my relationship with my husband since I started doing this has shifted. Um, it's still not the best, but it's better. You
Yeah.
know, just everything. We start to notice these shifts in our life.
Mm. We've covered some like powerful words in this conversation, like perspective. It's going to take work, the self-healing, self-awareness, self-belief. like words that really resonate with people: anxiety, worry, fear, past struggles, failure, the whole lot. Like there's a lot of words in this conversation that I think resonate with people, and it can be hard to put it all together. It is a lot of work. It's putting all the pieces together, which can be scary for a lot of people. But the app is that, as I keep saying, because I really feel this for it, it is something that's going to hold your hand while you at least try to put some of the pieces to puzzle together and discover who you are. If
And I don't think it takes as much time as people think.
Mm.
If you're really getting deep down to a very specific point in your life, and you start to just listen to this, a couple of times a week, and you start to notice a difference. There's also a sheet that outlines the whole activation, and there's affirmations that go with it also. So it's kind of has, a couple of things that integrate this, these activations. So if you were doing something and you noticed there was some kind of a shift that was started happening in your life, then you would want to do it more,
Mhm.
or perhaps underlyingly and unconsciously, maybe some people don't want to change because they're okay with the way they are.
Well, that's true. Some people are just comfortable where they are. But I
Yeah,
think in that there needs to be self-realization that you
right.
need to come to terms, and that's okay if you're happy staying where
Yes.
you are. But realize it. Don't pretend you're not happy just because,
Right.
again, societal expectations tell you you should be something else.
Yeah, let's make that conscious to you,
Yeah.
right? Or to ourselves.
So how
Yeah,
many minutes a day would so you very graciously have gifted my clients and followers a free month, which thank
I
you very
did.
much.
I
But
did. I'm excited for people to get
so because
right.
we're so busy, how many minutes a day do people ideally need to dedicate to entering the app and doing the tasks?
I think just a couple of times a week, and maybe three, two is fine. And sometimes you can have it just playing in the background. And also, the apps are like 35 to 45 minutes long. The activations are. So, um, so a couple of times a week for a life change, I think is a good deal.
So you keep saying activations and listening. So what are people to expect? They create an account, they log in. What do they expect to see then? Is it different meditations, words of inspiration, mantras, affirmations, blah, blah, blah?
Call them activations, and they're guided meditations.
Okay.
But I call them activations because I feel like they're very succinct and very powerful process. And they get that, and they get what I call it an elixir, which is like a write-up of what this activation is about. And then they get affirmations that they could just listen to in the background. And um, I don't say there's 12 activations, and they're themed. So I leave it up to the client to choose what resonates, what's up for them at that point. There's no, you got to do this first, do this second, do this. You could just listen to it and follow whichever one you think is appropriate for you, which is like kind of giving you a little, hey, it's me first. So they could just choose um what they feel would be best for them.
So it's
And
very doable. We're not asking you to do 51 burpees before you head out the door in the morning. You just listen to this and take this
right,
helping hand and see
right.
what happens.
Right. And then, or listen to it at night before you go to bed, because I feel like at night there's you're more receptive, because you're like, okay, I'm letting everything go from the day, and we're going to put this activation to look at this right now.
Yeah. There's a sense of calm in the evening, even if it's not for too long. You know, I survived another day, the day's over, and you can almost open your ears better. Like you said, be more receptive to whatever's being fed to you at that time.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited that you're excited about this. I find it really nurturing
Yeah. Well,
and
nourishing.
nourishing. as a tool. But remember, we always have our own tools inside of us. It's just bringing forward some of our own tools too.
Mm.
So I'm excited for everybody to
Yeah,
try this. I love everybody's feedback and what results they got. I'd love to hear results.
yeah. So it's that we have all of it inside us, but here's your helping hand.
Right.
So I have the link for the free gift. So thank you. I'll pop that in the description. But if people want to follow you and any more of your conversations or work more, where can they find you?
So I have a on my website. It's called Isabel Isabel
Hmm.
dash Chiara Chiara, and I have a few of books that I've written also on there. I have access to the Nourish app on there, and they can punch in the code that from your from this podcast.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Isabel. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I hope everyone did, because I think we were more focused on the insight on why people are struggling so much. And I think that's what people need to help them, like, really propel this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Well, thank you for your time. I will keep you posted on my experience with the app. Is there anything you'd like to leave people with, like a line of hope, or you can do this?
Well, remember that this is a path of nourishment, and you can use that word nourishment. It has a lot of energy to it as a safe space for yourself. And I wish everybody a nourishing life. And, we're all on a path to joy and happiness.
Yeah, it's a long path indeed. So thank you for your time, Isabel. You have a great day.
Thank you so much, Jane.